If you're in the market for a reasonably priced upgrade from your starter camera, this video is for you.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hi and welcome back to DIY Film with Merle Becker, the channel where I help you make better videos. Remember, there's a bonus tip for you at the end of this video, so keep it locked. Alright, so since April I've been using the Canon EOS R6 camera combined with a Canon 16-35 lens as my main camera for my videos, meaning the video that you're watching right now was shot on the R6. So today I wanted to run through the 5 reasons why I think the Canon R6 is an excellent choice for anyone looking to upgrade from their starter camera. Before we dive in, there's a few things I should mention. First, on this channel, I focus mainly on filmmaking tips and tutorials, so my camera recommendation is going to be geared towards filmmakers and those using their camera more for video. And secondly, if you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I'm a Canon girl. I've used Canon cameras since the early 2000s. My first professional video camera was their SD Mini DV camera and the XL1, which I shot 2 features on and tons of work for MTV, etc. And after that, I picked up a 7D, which I also shot tons of video projects on, and it never let me down. Except for the occasional overheating, which also happens on the R6. This happens when shooting long 4K clips, especially in the summer, but overheating is not a new thing. It was here with the DSLRs, and it's still here today. And P.S. for those looking for some tips on how to deal with overheating, check out my other video, How to Stop Your Camera from Overheating, which I will link in the description. But back to Canon. I'm loyal because I love the look you get with Canon sensors and lenses, and most recently, I love the super responsive autofocus in their mirrorless cameras. They have great customer service, and yeah, I'm Canon loyal. I currently also own a Canon EOS M50, which I would consider to be a starter camera. But as mentioned, my R6 is my main YouTube camera, and I absolutely love it. Alright, so let's get into the 5 reasons why I think the R6 is a great upgrade camera for filmmakers. 1. Price. First, let me say that the EOS R6 body, which currently retails for around $2,500 US, is very similar to Canon's more expensive mirrorless camera, the EOS R5. The R5 costs almost twice as much, however, retailing at around $4,000. And although both cameras have full-frame sensors, the main difference between the R5 and the R6 is that the R5 has a 45 megapixel sensor, while the R6 has a 20.1 megapixel sensor. Other than that, you have pretty much the same technology with a few exceptions. So I'm here to say that for videographers, the R6's 20.1 megapixel sensor is just fine. And here's why. If you're shooting stills like landscapes or portraits, you're going to be more inclined to zoom in and crop your images. And when you do, those extra sensor megapixels will make a difference. You'll get a crisper image even when you're extreme cropping. But for video and filmmaking, for the most part, you're not doing a lot of cropping. And the 20.1 megapixel sensor will suit you just fine. So picking the R6 over the more expensive R5 will get your video job done and leave you with enough money left over to buy a nice Canon lens. 2. In-body image stabilization. Image stabilization used to be something that you'd only find in lenses, but with the mirrorless cameras came in-body image stabilization, and I'm here for it. Image stabilization, put simply, is the camera's ability to shift the camera sensor in order to compensate for any shakes that are generated by holding the camera with your hands. And the result of image stabilization is that your footage doesn't look as shaky, and still photographs don't have as much blur. Now, the R6 not only has in-body image stabilization, but it also works alongside with lenses that have image stabilization. So you kind of get twice the stabilizing, which makes for a much smoother shot. So if you're a filmmaker that goes handheld now and then, or even on a gimbal, the R6 is going to provide you with a nice, smooth shot, thanks to in-body image stabilization. 3. 4K resolution and frame rate options. The R6, as you might expect, shoots in 4K. And there's no crop in 4K on the R6, like there is with the M50. And while we're on the subject of resolutions, for those looking to go all the way up to 8K, the R5 would be your choice. But for those displaying their work on YouTube, websites, or even television, 4K is an ample resolution. If you're doing a lot of extreme cropping or projecting your work on a large movie theater screen, it might be worth going up to 8K, but unless you can afford to beef up all your other workflow components like your computer, etc., I recommend sticking with 4K for the time being. So the R6 gives you some great options in 4K. You can shoot in the standard 24, 30, or even 60 frames per second. And if you want to go all the way up to 120 frames per second, you can do so in 1080p. But in my opinion, 60 frames per second still looks great for the average filmmaker looking to slow down the occasional shot. So for a filmmaker who wants a camera that's a step up from the M50, the R6 offers a lovely 4K resolution with all your standard frame rates and no crop factor. 4. Outstanding autofocus. First, let me start out by saying that one of my biggest issues with the M50, which I still love by the way, is that the autofocus in 4K is not as responsive. The reason is that the M50 switches to contrast detect autofocus when you're in 4K mode. This is not the case on the R6. The autofocus on the R6 in 4K is the more responsive dual pixel autofocus, and it's lightning fast. The face detect and eye detect autofocus works like a dream, making the R6 great for vlogging, and perfect for a YouTuber who wants to shoot in 4K but needs a more responsive autofocus than their M50. Or a DIY filmmaker shooting a feature, short, or a documentary who wants accurate autofocus in the absence of, say, a crew member who's pulling focus for them. All in all, the R6 autofocus is top-notch, and that snappy autofocus in 4K makes the R6 a great upgrade camera. 5. The EF mount adapter. I added this last one because all of the lenses I own are Canon EF lenses from when I owned the 7D. And luckily, instead of having to sell them all and upgrade to R6's RF lens series, I had the option to buy an EF adapter for $100. And voila, all my older EF lenses worked seamlessly, even with the third-party Velo lens adapter that I have. Now, it's important to note that not all lens adapters will work well with camera and lens combos. Sometimes the autofocus doesn't work as well, etc. But not in this case. So if you were a DSLR owner and you have lenses from the EF series, you can just buy the EF adapter for $100 for the R6. And you can use what you got with no problems. Done and done. Other things I like. Alright, now that we've gone through the main list, here's a short list in no particular order of the other things I like about the Canon R6. I like having dual card slots. I like the option to transfer photos to my computer using the camera's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connection options. I like the vari-angle LCD touchscreen that works in every direction, making vlogging easy. I also like that you can navigate the menus both on the touchscreen or with the dials. I like that the camera body is relatively compact and that it's lighter than the DSLRs. And I think that's about it. I'm sure I'll think of one more as soon as I hit publish, but that's it for now. All right, let's do the tip. If you're in the market for a camera upgrade, but you're not quite sure if that $5,000 camera is right for you, why not rent one for a day before you buy? Many camera rental companies offer one-day rental for cameras like the R6 or the R5 for around $100. And if you don't live nearby, places like Adorama Rentals in New York City will ship to anywhere in the country. So try before you buy. It's the best way to be completely sure that your pricey new camera will be the right one for you. Okay folks, I hope some of this was helpful. I've got a link to my R6 as well as the EF adapter and some of the lenses that I use in the description below if you want to check any of them out. And as always, on your way out, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when the next one is posted, and I will catch you next time.